Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar, Achieving Zero Waste and Innovative Reuse and Recycling Contracts. This webinar is sponsored by the EPA Sustainable Materials Management Web Academy. My name is Katie Harrison and I am part of the webinar support team at ERG, which is a contractor supporting the Academy. I will be managing the technical aspects of today's webinar. While we wait for the others to log on, I would just like to cover a few housekeeping items. By now, you should have the GoToWebinar application running and should see the welcome presentation on your screen. There is also a control panel box on the right-hand side of your screen. Audio is available with your computer's speakers, and all attendees have been muted to preserve audio quality. Additionally, live captioning in English is provided for today's webinar by Caption First. Please click on the link in the chat box to view live subtitles, which will launch in a separate window. And I will add those in now. If you're experiencing technical difficulties using GoToWebinar, you can go to www.gotowebinar.com and click on FAQs in the blue navigation bar on the left side of the page. We've noticed that sometimes a few attendees experience some technical issues on occasion with audio or viewing the slides during our webinar. While this is rare, if this happens, you may wish to leave the webinar and rejoin. This generally addresses the issues quickly and easily for you. This webinar will be recorded, and you can find a copy of the presentation slides to download by clicking on the Handouts tab of your control panel. We are planning to post these on EPA's SMM Web Academy site. You will receive a link in the email after today's webinar. We encourage you to ask questions throughout this webinar. To submit a question or comment, please type your question into the questions box and click Send to submit it. We will have a dedicated time for questions and answers after the presentations have concluded. After today's webinar, there will be a short evaluation. Please take a moment to fill it out. Your feedback is vital to helping us provide the highest quality speakers and information to meet your needs. This concludes my housekeeping notes, so I'll turn it over to Jessica Counts-Arnold, a Pollution Prevention and Sustainable Materials Coordinator from EPA's Pacific Southwest office in San Francisco. Thank you for joining us today, Jessica.
And thank all of you for joining the May Sustainable Materials Management Web Academy. This one-hour webinar is hosted by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency to provide training and a networking opportunity to governments, non-governmental organizations, and other stakeholders interested in sustainable materials management. Today's EPA-hosted webinar will share innovative contracting approaches to reducing and managing materials to advance source reduction, reuse, and recycling. The U.S. Forest Service will share their 2020 EPA Federal Green Challenge Innovation Award-winning vision and work to achieve net zero waste at all large fire incidents by 2030 and integrate sustainable operations best management practices into the fire community. In 2021, the City of Berkeley established a contract with Urban Ore Inc. to advance the city's zero waste goal and reduce operational costs associated with long-haul transportation and landfill disposal. Urban Ore salvages reusable materials from the city's owned and operated transfer station and is allocated space property for a staff shed and a box truck used to transport salvaged materials to the company's reuse, retail, and recycling eco park. Before we get into our presentations, I'd like to see who is attending this webinar. We have a quick poll, which Katie will launch shortly. We'd like to know, which sector do you represent? Government, nonprofit, business, academic, or other? We'll leave this up for a minute or so, and then we'll review the results.
All right, thank you, Jessica, and thank you everyone for taking the poll. I can see the responses coming in. I'll leave it up for another 10 seconds or so. So if you haven't chosen an option, please do so now. All right, and it looks like 59% of our attendees are in government, 19% in business, 3% other, and 7% nonprofit.
Great. Thank you all for taking the poll. Our speakers today will be Kelly Jaramillo, who's the Sustainable Operations Coordinator and National Greening Fire Team Chair with the U.S. Forest Service Region 3 in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Kelly and the team that worked on this effort have been national leaders in EPA's Federal Green Challenge. And our next presenter after her will be Max Wechsler, who's an operations manager for Urban Ort Inc. in Berkeley, California. Max is a zero waste leader in the EPA convened Bay Area Deconstruction Work Group. As a friendly reminder, we will answer questions after the formal presentations conclude. Please feel free to type your questions throughout the webinar. Moving into today's webinar, please note this disclaimer. As we mentioned, today's format will be learning from both of our expert presenters, and then we will address your questions at the end. Before we get started with Kelly's presentation, we'd like to know if you're involved in zero waste or materials waste management contracting, and if so, how much? We'll give everyone about a minute or so to respond to our quick poll.
Great, thank you everyone who took the poll. I'll share the results now. And it looks like we have a tie between attendees who are somewhat involved and not involved but are interested, followed by very involved, and 12% does not reply.
Hello, everyone. Big thanks to EPA for the opportunity to share the National Greening Fire Team's pursuit of zero waste with all of you today. As Jessica mentioned, I'm Kelly Jaramillo, and I'm the chairperson of the National Greening Fire Team. Before launching into our incident recycling program, I thought it would be helpful to provide a brief organizational context. Many of you are likely familiar with wildland fires. We refer to these as incidents. On the left side of the screen, you can see a quick snapshot of the active and emerging wildfires in the West as of last week. Already, you can see that an active fire year is well underway. Many agencies play important roles in what we call incident management. On the right side, you can see a list of the member agencies within the National Wildfire Coordinating Group, or NWCG. When I use the word interagency in the future, I'm referring to these member agencies. Our National Greening Fire Team is currently chartered under the Forest Service Fire and Aviation Management Program. For many of you, Smokey Bear is likely a familiar face. As you can see on the slide, the Forest Service is one of several member agencies within the NWCG. In this presentation, when I describe fire camps or incidents, you can imagine something like what you see on this slide. Fighting wildland fires can require several hundred or even several thousand firefighters and support personnel over just a few days on a small fire or months on a very large fire. Incidents may be near urban areas or in very remote locations. Fire camps may include tents or yurts like those that you see here. In addition, there are many other forms of logistical equipment and support, like generators and light towers, that play an important role in incident operations. Food and supplies often arrive in cardboard boxes, and they're usually crates of bottled water and sports drinks. When we discuss our greening fire program, you can imagine the complexity of trying to implement sustainable best practices across a wide spectrum of circumstances, knowing that in all cases, the mission of fighting the fire as safely and quickly as possible remains the top priority. As I mentioned earlier, our National Greening Fire Team is chartered under the Forest Service, but we take pride in our efforts to serve the interagency fire community. Our vision is to achieve net zero environmental impact at all large fire incidents by 2030, and our mission is to integrate sustainability best practices on incidents and within the fire community. We do this by conserving energy and water, reducing fuel consumption, sustainable acquisition, and reducing waste on fires. As you can see, our Greening Fire Team network spans the entire United States. In the world of fire, we refer to Geographic Area Coordination Centers, or GACs. Using me as an example, I am based out of Albuquerque, New Mexico, so I'm in the Southwest GAC. Altogether, we have roughly 99 people across every GAC that have signed up in some way to be a part of our Greening Fire program. Currently, our Greening Fire Team network is heavily dominated by individuals that work for the Forest Service, but we're growing representation across the interagency with ambassadors from the agencies that you see here, state agencies, and other partners. Our Greening Fire Team ambassadors are individuals that simply have a desire to help advance sustainability best practices in incident operations. They participate as little or as much as they're interested and able. The National Renewable Energy Laboratory, or NREL, is a very important and long-term partner to the Greening Fire Team. They previously completed sustainability audits on multiple fire camps. You can see some of the best practices they identified, as well as a link to their full report on this slide. Our team is working on all of the sustainability best practices, but one in particular has become a top deliverable: implementing standardized recycling on incidents. So let's dive into reducing waste on incidents. When I first started working to reduce waste on incidents, I was often asked, why does trash matter? Well, you may or may not be aware, recent congressional findings state that many of the cities in the United States will be running out of suitable waste disposal sites within 5 years unless immediate action is taken. Furthermore, the report states that this matter is national in scope and in concern and necessitates federal action. So, trash clearly matters urgently in our country. I was then asked, well, how much trash do incidents generate? I estimate that in 2017, incidents in my region in the Southwest likely generated just over 6 million pounds of trash. At the same time, I estimate that our Forest Service offices in the Southwest likely generated just under 7 million pounds of trash. Importantly, the U.S. Department of Agriculture requires its agencies to divert 55% of their solid waste from landfills. So, tackling waste from incidents in my region, just as an example, is a very important opportunity for my agency and others to achieve our waste diversion goals. Along with the question of how much trash is generated, I was often asked, well, what is the cost of trash on incidents? Similar to many services on incidents, the cost for trash hauling varies greatly depending on the location, the number of dumpsters needed, the size of the incident, the frequency of hauling that's required. Obviously, the more trash that is generated, the higher the trash hauling costs. On a larger incident, this could mean costs anywhere between $11,000 and $22,000 per week. So we discussed why trash matters, how much is generated, how much it costs on incidents. If you remember, NREL's report recommended that we implement standardized recycling on incidents. So my next questions were, what have we already tried And what do we need to do to standardize the program? In the past, we tried to reduce trash on incidents by implementing recycling programs using in-house personnel on fires. Recycling was essentially an additional duty. We struggled with sufficient staffing and training, inadequate recycle bins and signs, heavy contamination, and a lack of knowledge tied to where and how to take the recyclables to the closest recycle outlet. Our National Greening Fire team knew we could possibly resolve these issues and achieve real waste diversion results through a streamlined contract vehicle. However, if we were going to do this, we knew we needed to address the perception that recycling is too expensive. We also knew we needed to figure out if vendors even existed that could provide on-site recycling services similar to those at a zero waste music festival, except under extreme conditions and for a long period of time. Next, we need to write the scope of work and describe exactly what services we needed to implement a standardized recycling program in a very dynamic environment. In terms of geographic scope, we knew we wanted to pilot the effort in multiple geographic areas, but we needed to define which ones. And lastly, who's going to do all of this? When we started our effort, it was just myself, a crazy engineer, my past Greening Fire Team co-chair, Laura Bullich, and Stephanie Archuleta, a motivated contracting officer, trying to tackle all of the issues I described on the last slide. But we were determined to create a turnkey incident recycling contract vehicle with standardized recycling equipment, signs, and processes, highly qualified vendors, and cost-effective waste diversion services. With help from other key Greening Fire Team members and leadership support, which is essential, we launched a brand new service. We are now in our third year of our 3-year effort to pilot incident recycling across the 4 geographic areas that you see on this slide. Last year, in 2020, I am very proud to say that we saw a 50% increase in the number of orders for incident recycling as compared to 2019. And this year, we are expecting yet another increase as more teams learn about this relatively new service. When incident recycling services are ordered, the vendors provide trash and recycle stations throughout the fire camp. They service the recycle stations to prevent overflow. The vendors are required to transport all recyclables to an appropriate recycle outlet, as well as document their waste diversion data. It was important to us that our program be professional, transparent, and accountable. So we developed data tools for mandatory reporting of the trash and recycle quantities. Lastly, our recycling vendors are required to provide a final written waste diversion report that not only summarizes their waste and recycling data, but also provides insights into the challenges they encountered, lessons learned, and opportunities for improvement, so that our National Greening Fire Team can use these reports to continuously improve our program in the future. The vendors are required to recycle cardboard, paper, plastic, and several of the other items that you see on the slide. Additional services can be ordered for managing specialty items like cooking oil, tires, or batteries. By providing what we call turnkey on-site incident recycling, we wanted to make recycling on incidents easy, efficient, and effective. Here you can see photos from our incident recycling program last year. And on the right, you can see the recycle station system that was used on the Red Salmon Complex in California. On the top left, you can see a recycle center on the Bighorn fire in Arizona. I was actually on that fire. And on the bottom left, you can see a photo from the Slater Devil fire, showing a very clear reduction in waste when the recyclables are diverted from the waste stream. As you can imagine, our program not only reduces the waste that is hauled to our community landfills, but we also save money by reducing trash hauling costs. As I mentioned earlier, many people raised concerns that they believe recycling was too expensive. Interestingly enough, when we compare the daily cost of recycling to the cost of portable toilets and hand wash stations, the toilets and hand wash stations cost 3 times as much as incident recycling. When we compared the cost of recycling to the total daily fire camp operating costs on a fire, the recycling service amounted to 0.5% of the total daily cost. In addition, what is the cost of not recycling, especially if existing landfills reach capacity? We know new landfills cost taxpayers millions of dollars. By diverting recyclables out of the waste stream, we estimate that we can save between 50 and 80% in trash hauling costs on incidents, which could mean a savings of anywhere up to $18,000 per week. This past year, because of COVID mitigation measures, we saw trash nearly double on incidents. Recycling is not ordered on all incidents. However, we have seen positive results when it is ordered. On the Slater Devil fire in the Washington and Oregon area, the recycling vendor and incident management team achieved a 43% waste diversion rate and diverted 37,000 pounds of material, as well as 30,600 pounds of non-perishable food. Something that was unexpected to us, but very welcome, was feedback that the recycling vendors helped make the fire camp feel more clean and well organized. This intangible benefit is something our vendors have shared with us is actually common with other zero waste events when they're providing on-site waste diversion and recycling services. Earlier, I mentioned that the vendors are required to track and report their waste diversion data. Our National Green Fire team built a complimentary dashboard so that we could quickly visualize the data from the vendors. Here you can see a sample screenshot from our waste diversion dashboard that we built using ArcGIS Online. On the left, you can see widgets that allow us to easily toggle between various charts to see which geographic areas have diverted the most recyclables, what types of recyclables have been diverted, etc. As part of our efforts to standardize the recycling experience in the field, we also developed incident recycling posters, like those that you see on this slide, with straightforward text and graphics, along with QR codes that take incident personnel to our public website to learn more about the program. Our recycling program is certainly young. However, it is exciting to see feedback from the public like, biggest thumbs up today. This is wonderful. I always hated the waste that went on in fire camp. So cool. Thank you for saving our land. Importantly, we also received similar feedback from our own firefighting personnel who really appreciate the program and the opportunity to participate in reducing waste on fires. Well, as I mentioned, we're in the last year of our 3-year pilot. So what is planned for 2022 and beyond? In terms of the big picture, our National Green Fire team wants to build a detailed roadmap to get to net zero waste by 2030 by analyzing the incident supply chain, regional recycling infrastructure, and potential partnerships, as well as completing on-site waste audits. This detailed net zero waste design and assessment will be starting soon. In terms of the incident recycling service itself, our National Green Fire team requested input from our logistics community as to whether they'd like to see the pilot effort expanded. As you can see on this slide, the overwhelming answer from the field was yes, we would like to see this incident recycling service expanded to include the Northern Rockies, Rocky Mountain, Great Basin, and other geographic areas. In order to expand the BPA, we are conducting market research to identify vendors that could provide on-site incident recycling services at fire camps across the United States. If you know a company that might be able to provide these services, please share the link on this slide so that they can submit their information. The deadline was extended and folks can report until this Friday, the 28th of May. Earlier in the presentation, I mentioned that our team's vision is to achieve net zero environmental impact by 2030. So to round out this presentation, I'll start to wrap up by sharing a few of the other ways that we are working to green fire. You'll shortly see some examples of sustainable best practices from the field. On the bottom left of this slide, you should see an example of the Kinixu Wildland Fire Module using solar panels to charge their communications equipment in the field. There's no need for fuel and no noise. On the right, you can see them using a solar water filtration system to purify water that they are storing in 5-gallon, military-grade, reusable water containers that eliminate the need for single-use plastic bottles. Earlier this spring, our team completed preliminary market research to identify companies that offer green products and services on incidents in the future. Here you can see an example of a renewably powered light tower that could offer a more efficient, noise-free, pollution-free option for our fire camps in the future. So in this presentation, I shared with you a brief overview of our National Green Fire Team, the need for incident recycling, cost of trash, the savings from recycling, as well as our contract vehicle that our team built to roll out a standardized recycling program across multiple geographic areas. I also briefly discussed how the Net Zero Waste program fits within our broader program of achieving net zero environmental impact by 2030. I feel our team has made great strides with a very limited core staff, and we hope to make greater strides in the future. So our National Green Fire Team thanks the EPA for recognizing our team through the Federal Green Challenge program. I thank you all for your time today.
Thank you, Kelly. Before we begin Max's presentation, we'd like to know, does your organization or community have a zero waste goal, a recycling goal, both, or neither? If you're not sure, we'd love to know that too. So we'll give a few minutes for this poll to stay up.
All right, thank you everyone who has taken the poll so far. I'm going to leave it open for another maybe 5 seconds or so. So if you would like to lock in your answer, please do so now. Great, thank you everyone. And I'm going to share our results. So it looks like we have almost half of our attendees who responded have a recycling goal, followed by no zero waste or recycling goals yet. And then a zero waste goal is 11% and 9% don't know.
Hello, everybody. My name is Max Wechsler, and I am the Operations Manager at Urban Ore, the reuse, retail, and recycling eco park in Berkeley, California since 1980. We are so grateful to the US EPA for this opportunity to share our contract and our story. We hope to provide some information and inspiration so that you can spread our model to your area. This photo was taken almost exactly a decade ago at the Regional Berkeley Refuse Transfer Station, where I started at Urban Ore as a salvager. And there are some things in life that once you see, you can't unsee, including that trash mountain in the background, which accumulated every day and then magically disappeared. So, what is Urban Ore? We're a for-profit corporation founded in 1980. Last year, we generated 2.7 million in gross revenue. We hire 31 staff, 28 full-time, We're actually hiring a few more this week, as well as a handful of regular contractors. And we believe that we handle between 7,000 to 8,000 tons of material going through our doors every day or every year. And that's based on our best guesstimate by observation in a pseudoscientific study. What you see on this map is where we're located. That's the arrow on the left in Berkeley, just on the border with Oakland. And the other arrow points to the landfill, the Altamont landfill, which is 46 miles away, which is where all of our garbage is hauled to every day. What is an eco park? This is an aerial shot taken 3 years ago. The difference today is that there's now 206 solar panels on our roof. You can see the San Francisco Bay in the background. We're conveniently located right off the freeway there. And we occupy a 3-acre site with a 30,000 square foot warehouse. And this is where we sell reusable and recyclable goods. And in order to understand our contract, it's important to understand where we came from and how we were born, because they're very humble beginnings. This is 1979, and the landfill at the time was an open pit in the San Francisco Bay, which was common practice. In 1976, post Earth Day 1970, Berkeley, being the leader that it was and is, implemented into the municipal code a clause that mandated salvaging at the dump. So we began as initially part of a nonprofit that lasted a year, which we spun off into Urban Ore, collecting scrap metals, which we would accumulate and then sell to a local junkyard. Over time, things evolved. When a customer would drop off, say, a metal chair, a customer on the way out would see that chair, and if they were interested in it and we could sell it for more than scrap value, then we would. And then someone would drop off a table, and then maybe someone would drop off a wooden table. And being an entrepreneur, Dr. Dan Knapp, who's our founder and general manager, would basically negotiate deals on the spot, out in the open, exposed to the elements with barely any infrastructure. And that's how we began. We still salvage. This is at the transfer station. The concrete floor and the roof helps. Every morning, the first thing that we do is we unload the salvage truck from the day before. And we go around our property. The stuff is staged in such a way that it's easy to unload throughout the various sections throughout the building and out in the yard. And the truck ends up in our store receiving department. So now we're going to talk about the 7 different departments that comprise Urban Ore. This department for the store receiving takes in everything that goes into the store. And this includes bulky items like you see in this photo, as well as thousands and thousands of small knickknacks, housewares, hardware, arts and media, all sorts of stuff. The general idea is if we think we can sell it for reuse, then we will accept it. We provide the disposal service to the public, and we believe that 80% of our stuff is dropped off on our site. And we do recover an average of 3 tons a day salvaging at the landfill, and we'll get to those numbers soon. This is a shot of the store, which is the 30,000 square foot warehouse. You can see some of the sections, including clothing and furniture, housewares, etc. And then everything outside is part of the building materials department, as well as the doors. We have over 6,000 doors, trim, and flooring inside. And building materials does its own receiving, and there's Dr. Dan unloading a door from a supply side customer. And this is convenient for our customers because they don't have to pay the $126 per ton to dispose of it at the transfer station. It's convenient for them, and they're happy that their things are getting another life. We also have an outside trader department which is 2 people on a box truck doing pickups and deliveries throughout the Bay Area. And what we can't sell for reuse, we try to sell for recycling. So here are some of our disposal numbers, and I want to take a moment to emphasize that we have been working on a campaign to do with language for many decades, because we believe that language is very important and it frames the way that we think about the field, which has largely been controlled by the solid waste management industry, the wasters, as we say, whom we are competing with for the same supply of stuff. So when we say disposal, that means any transfer of ownership and the liability that comes with the ownership of an object. And that includes landfilling, but when we say landfilling, we want to be specific. So you can see the other forms of materials that we recycle, and the grand totals at the bottom. And you can see in 2017, we salvaged 729 tons from going to the landfill. We handle types of materials that the typical reuse retail facility does not, including glass and ceramics, of which we have 20-yard containers. And by recycling those, we save a lot of money, as well as plastics, textiles, batteries. Electronic breakage is commonly known as e-waste. That's another language piece that we work on. We say that waste isn't waste until it's wasted. In other words, waste is a verb. And our mission, by the way, is to end the age of waste. Here you see some important tangible benefits. The first point is purchases for resale. So what this means is that we do purchase some items to then resell from the public, to the public, from and to the public. And that averages about $100,000 per year. This is to incentivize a high quality stream of merchandise coming to us. We don't issue donation receipts because we're not a nonprofit 501c3, but we do pay out both cash and store credit for certain items to keep them bringing us the good stuff. These other numbers also highlight the fact that we are a for-profit and we pay all of the taxes that a for-profit corporation does. And so that is something that local government appreciates. In addition, there are a variety of intangible benefits that we provide to the community, including the disposal costs saved by our supply side customers, because again, they don't have to pay to get rid of their stuff. Immeasurable. Also, well, we could measure it theoretically if we had truck scales, but we don't. So you could if you wanted to. We think about the $2.7 million that we grossed last year. We're selling our stuff at a fraction of the costs that it is new. And that's not a shameless plug, it's just the truth. So think about the amount of money that we're saving our demand side customers, many of whom I think it's fair to say do depend on us for affordable quality goods. The preservation of cultural and material value is priceless and a big selling point. And we create jobs in a local community out of what otherwise would take a handful of people and some heavy machinery to bury it in a hole. Finally, the climate impacts are immense, from the front end impact that it takes to manufacture a new thing to the back end impacts of sending it to the landfill, including the generation of methane for organic materials. So this is really important, this slide, because taken together, these economic, environmental, community, and social benefits create layers of good. This is the lasagna of good, that wherever you are, these are the points that can contribute to a contract like the one that we have, because it's not just about the environment. Zero waste has all of these other benefits, and no matter your political affiliation, everyone can agree that the creation of local jobs and local business is the backbone of the American economy. And so if you live in a place that prioritizes cultural preservation, like in San Antonio, Texas, that is a point that you can bring to your city council. So we were primarily we're environmentalists, but also there's all these incredible side effects. This slide shows how we've grown from our humble beginnings. And our revenue was static from 2009 to 2019 at $2.6 million. And then of all years, last year during the pandemic, we finally hit 2.7 million, and we're on track this year to surpass 3 million by significant margins, perhaps. So we're moving in the right direction once again. This slide also shows a few key events in our history, which I'll touch upon briefly now, including when the old dump into the bay closed in 1983 and the transfer station opened. This is the site, that's the transfer station, newly minted. And at this time, this is one of the earliest aspects of our public-private partnership with the City of Berkeley, because the city allowed us to operate on this site, which is city owned, and where that red arrow is on the right, that's where we set up. And from 1983 to 1989, we were here, and the deal with the city was that we were rent free until we hit a threshold of $11,000, and whatever we made in gross on top of that, we paid the city 10%. And that allowed us to incubate until we were making enough money that we were paying market rate and were able to move off the site and rent our own yard. The early 2000s were another significant period in our history. This was when a state piece of legislation called AB 939 had teeth for the first time. Basically, this drove local jurisdictions to meet landfill diversion targets, and the state had the power to slap $10,000 fines on local jurisdictions a day if they did not. At the same time, we were moving sites to our current location, and the City of Berkeley, to meet its climate goals and its diversion goals, declared Urban Ore a Berkeley treasure, and that's when our contract first instituted a salvage service fee, whereby we were compensated for every ton that we rescued from going to the landfill at the Berkeley transfer station. And I'll return to that shortly. This is also a good time to note that we did get low interest loans and grants from the state and the county and the city to help us move into our current building, which needed seismic retrofits and some other work. We also worked with the city to invent the material recovery enterprise in the zoning code, and that allowed us to operate as a particular type of retail on our current site. And around this time, in the year 2005, the city passed its first zero waste resolution, which, among other things, set a zero waste goal. It also changed the name of the Solid Waste Commission to the Zero Waste Commission, which is an advisory board appointed by City Council that meets monthly. We met last night, in fact. And this is a great way for us to all stay connected as a zero waste community. It serves as a conduit. And at this moment, I would like to thank the City of Berkeley City Council, staff, and the Commission for being pioneers in zero waste, for prioritizing it, past and present. What we have achieved is amazing, and has taken many decades of effort and really showcases some real leadership. In 2018, we passed a zero waste reaffirmation. I personally contributed a few of the whereases to this one, and this reiterated many key points, including, as you can see at the bottom, a fee structure to compensate recovery operators to ensure that the whole system can function. So we don't call this a subsidy, again, in terms of language. This is a service fee. And on that point, in 2020, so our salvage service fee was revoked in 2012 because of the Great Recession and budget issues. It was reinstated last year. And this recognizes that zero waste businesses deserve the same amount, at least, of compensation that the city is paying a third party to send it to the landfill. Just as waste management receives $47.74 per ton to handle the material going to the landfill, so are we getting now the same amount to keep it out of the landfill. So it's a service fee, just like the other corporation, the other alternatives. So it's a wash for the city in that regard. However, we provide all of these other benefits that I mentioned earlier, including helping the city reach its climate action plan goals. Arguably, one could say that we deserve more than the alternative of sending it to landfill, but we think this is a pretty good start. And some more aspects of the contract include the fact that we have the exclusive rights to salvage the reusable materials. It's a 3-year term that gets renewed, and then it allows us the infrastructure to operate on the site, including a box truck and a shed. And also importantly, we work with the city staff on site to report hazardous materials to keep them from being illegally dumped and going to the landfill. So we work with the city in trainings, including hazmat recognition, identification, and communication. And there are safety meetings, and what happens is we invoice the city for the tonnage that we salvage every month, because our truck gets weighed in and weighed out, and we get paid by the difference, just as a self-hauler pays for the difference to send it to the landfill. So what's covered in this contract? We have discretion, sole discretion, to determine what we want to take. Right there are some of the common types of things that we find at the transfer station, and we get what we can. It's a very exciting job, I can tell you that from experience. Here's some information about the contract and our case study as well. We've also used some of our data to contribute to the EPA's WARM model, measuring carbon impacts from various disposal options. And we are thrilled that CalRecycle has been working on integrating reuse as an option, which is more complicated, but very important. And so we have been working with them behind the scenes with some of our data to talk about categories of things that can be integrated into the WARM model as well. So that about wraps up my presentation. That's our flying pig. It's not for sale. We have been told for decades that what we're doing is impossible, but we've proven the concept, and since other for-profits have arisen, and we hope to spread this model, and we hope that a pig can fly to your area soon. And that opens it up to questioning for both presentations. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Hello, this is Timothy Hood, Zero Waste and Green Building Coordinator with EPA's Pacific Southwest Office, and I'll be moderating the Q&As today. First, thanks again to our outstanding speakers. The first question I have for both of the speakers is, what do you think is the greatest benefit of working toward zero waste or net zero goals?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that one. If there's anything I'd like to emphasize about pitching this to your local government, it's the fact that zero waste is not just about the environment, which it is very much. We create jobs, there's economic and cultural and social benefits, all these economic multiplier effects. Everything I discussed earlier is really an awesome aspect of having a zero waste goal. I came into the field having grown up in a scrap metal junkyard with recycling as an economic driver. And that's, you know, how I grew up and how I've always seen it. And it's important to really link up and associate economic and environmental benefits together, because the concept of zero waste is a universally sort of intuitive concept of one person's trash is another's treasure. Anybody can understand the basic premise of that. So yeah, that's the lasagna of good I was discussing earlier.
And Kelly, did you want to answer that too?
Sure, thanks, Timony. I think net zero might feel like a really difficult goal for a lot of folks, but I think if we don't shoot for the stars, we definitely won't clear the trees. So, I feel like there's a lot of life cycle cost and carbon savings associated with net zero that Max talked about. There's potential for increased resilience as well that, EPA talks about on their website with the net zero programs. So Max did a great job summarizing the economic, environmental, and social benefits, but I think there's a ton of benefits within our own organizations, definitely opportunities to save money and reduce our carbon footprint.
Thank you. The next question is for Max. Isn't it strange that Urban Ore is having an unprecedented sales year during the pandemic? Why do you think that's happening?
Yeah, that's something I've been thinking a lot about recently. And like many things with business, there are many factors that I think have contributed to our success during the pandemic. First of all, folks who were already struggling are struggling even more, and we provide affordable goods to the community. We saw that we were recession proof about a decade ago, and now we're finding we're pandemic proof. A lot of folks have been moving, and stuff moving brings us business. Say someone's moving into a new space, they get rid of their love seat and they pick up a couch with the one-stop shop service that we provide. I don't know how much the stimulus checks have contributed, nothing, I suppose, as well as businesses closing. We got a lot of restaurant cookware and whatnot. Also the fact that we are a for-profit and are not controlled by a national corporate board allowed us the resiliency and the real-time decision-making every day to A, remain open as an essential business, and B, how to adapt with the times as, protocols changed. And so 8 Goodwills in the East Bay recently closed, and we took on the risk to stay open and serve the community. And so I think we got a lot of new business, and we're retaining some of that market share now as we speak.
Thank you. This next one is for Kelly. Do you see any potential applications for your recycling program to apply to other agencies or entities?
Thanks, Timony. I actually do, and I hope some of the government folks that joined us in the audience will see some applications as well. I think FEMA, DOD, and even some state and local entities that operate in the emergency management space could potentially deploy on-site recycling just like we did and with a hurricane response or other natural disaster recovery efforts. And hopefully they'll reach out and try to use some of the tools and resources that we developed for our contract vehicle as well. I also think outside of the disaster recovery and emergency management that our program could be applicable to public events like air shows, cities that host large conferences, tech events, or music festivals could set expectations for this type of service in the future, and they could very well also use some of the tools that we created.
Thanks so much. And just a reminder, in the handouts area, there are links to all of the contracts and information. The next question is for Max. There are people from all over the country interested in perhaps getting something similar started. So they wonder if you have ideas for outside of the Bay Area, and also maybe something that would be really helpful if you could share some revenue information by material category in terms of helping people think about what might be viable for starting operations.
Well, I basically believe that having this model would work anywhere, and in fact, the wages could be relatively a lot higher based on the dramatic cost of living in the Bay Area. I mean, we are providing living wages to entry-level staff plus full medical benefits. With that, I think that just talks about the strength, says a lot to the strength of our model. I mean, fundamentally, you just need folks who believe in the vision, which is what we're trying to inspire here, and to be able to take on the risk of starting a place up, get community support, get buy-in. And I mean, now for the first time, we're seeing Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania just got a contract last month to salvage at their transfer station. So, feel free to message me offline, and I'll be happy to share some other resources if you're serious about doing something like this. And yes, let's see if I can pull up some revenue numbers here. I thought someone might ask. So you can see our leader is doors, or bread and butter, doors and windows. So almost 400K last year, followed by furniture at 380. And you can see arts and media, which is everything from books and music and records and art supplies. Other leaders include hardware. You can't get certain types of vintage Victorian hardware anywhere else, and we have it. Housewares and windows are also some of our leaders in revenue generators.
Thanks, Max. One quick last question, and it's for Kelly. A lot of folks were interested in any efforts to reduce the plastic water bottle or plastic bottles, as well as possibly bulk food or other ways you can reduce packaging.
Yeah, thanks, Timony. And that is definitely no small undertaking. We're definitely working on trying to reduce single-use plastic bottles by encouraging people to take advantage of reusable beverage bottles and share information. Some of our contracts on fires, the contractors are required to provide potable water, like our national shower contracts and some of the others. So there's definitely opportunities to use a refillable water bottle at an incident, generally speaking, but we're working through those issues, and it's definitely on the radar we won't get to net zero waste if we don't tackle this. So we are working on a plan to absolutely try to roll out single-use plastic somehow.
Thanks so much. This concludes our question and answer session today, and thanks to all of you for the great questions. And we really appreciate your participation on the Achieving Zero Waste with Innovative Reuse and Recycling Contracts webinar.
Yes, many thanks to today's speakers for their insights on innovative reuse and recycling contracts. Finally, most of all, we thank you for joining this SMM Web Academy and hope you continue to join us. It is you that this program is designed for, so please make sure you complete our evaluation. We value your feedback on the survey. We use your responses to improve our webinar series to meet your needs. And we will post today's webinar recording and slides in about 2 weeks. And please join us in mid-June for our next SMM Web Academy webinar. Details about this webinar will be posted on EPA's SMM Web Academy webpage soon. So this concludes today's EPA SMM Web Academy session. Thank you and have a great day.